They'll loosen up that line. You won't see 11 players within 5 yards of that body.
I think I mentioned, a bludgeoning or something like that. That's what they came out and did.
7 state championships since 2014.
I tell you what, for those young men, there's no better feeling right now.
Hi, everyone. Hello, friends. Welcome to Fyffe Focus, the podcast, episode number 2. I'm your host, Adam Ward, alongside most of the radio show. We're actually another window deep. This time, instead of 3 windows, we've got 4 for this special episode of Fyffe Focus, the podcast. Let me introduce who we've got joining us here this evening. The guy below me right here, you all know him from our previous episode. He is Greg Mears, serving as our color analyst on the Red Devil Radio Show. Greg, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
To my right over here, a name that you're familiar with. You probably haven't seen him in quite some time because he picked up his family and moved away, the jerk. But Jonathan Bartlett, Jonathan, we call him JB for short. Jonathan still is a part of our crew, very much so. He handles all of our digital side and our stat sheets and our pretty much everything we need, digital, content creation. We go to JB. JB, say hello to the listeners.
Hello, listeners.
And then down here where he broke Wahoo's leg, I had to ask the explanation on this in the pre-production meeting, if you will. None other than Jeremy Johnson, our statistician and analysis for the Red Devil Radio Show. JJ, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be here for the first time. As we stated before we began recording, I'll be much more professional the second time around, but no guarantees this time.
Fyffe Focus, the podcast, episode number 2, and right off the bat, want to share a tidbit of exciting news that we've got for you. We have a sponsor. We went one episode in, and we were kind of hesitant. We were thinking we might have to go a few episodes, see if someone wants it. We got contacted, and I want to give credit where credit is due. This came through our buddy Greg down there, right below me in that window down there where it's labeled Greg's iPhone. We won't say who it is yet. We're still we're fine tuning all the little details at this point, but we have a sponsor for Fyffe Focus, the podcast. Greg, we're going to start them next week. I know you're excited about this because you're pretty close to the sponsor.
Yeah, I know these people very well. Been friends with them for, over 40 years, and great business, and looking forward to being able to help them out some.
Well, we look forward to getting them on next week as the official sponsor of Fyffe Focus, the podcast. With that, to give you kind of an idea of what you can expect on this week's episode, we're going to take a look at the overall schedule for the 2024 campaign of the Fyffe Red Devil football season, because it's a bit of an interesting schedule, to say the least. When all was said and done, of course, Fyffe moving up to 3A really kind of forced some things to go directions that we didn't see back in 2020, the first time they went 3A. And then, of course, we're going to go into what is already sort of a fan favorite, I think, just after one episode, the segment known as 10 Minutes of Crap. That just kind of happened. It came about, and it just happened. Go back and watch episode 1 for the explanation. Also, after that, we're going to introduce a new segment coined by our man JJ down there breaking Wahoo's leg. I'm gonna hit on that all episode, by the way. That segment is going to be called "So, What's on Your Mind?" And that's where each panelist, these guys, get 2 minutes apiece to give us an idea of something that they've been thinking about, something that's just been stuck on their brain. And kind of like the 10 minutes of crap, only the difference is the 10 minutes of crap, we try to organize a little and have an idea, a consensus of what we're going to talk about there. The what's on your mind, we don't know. These Greg, JB, JJ, they're going to surprise you. Heck, they might even surprise me, all right? And I got to give you a warning. I don't know what's coming out of their mouths. So hold them accountable. They're grown men. Let's get started.
Hey, Adam, I don't know either. I don't know either. I'll just go stake that up front.
Hey, I gave y'all one topic to be thinking about, so be ready to tell me yours.
Let's get started. Let's take a look at the overall football season outlook for 2024. And I want to give credit where credit is due again, in that all the info we're about to give you is courtesy of the AHSFHS.org, the Alabama High School Football Historical Society. And before we dive into that info that we've got from them, guys, you all can each comment on this. We were having a group text conversation, as we generally do, around the second week of November, maybe the second round of the playoffs, even when they got here, some folks, we won't name who, came under fire because they weren't giving the credit where the credit was due to the high school football historical society. And I want to say this: these guys, if you've ever used their website, they are top notch. If you need to know who a coach was of a football program back in 1978, there's the chance that they've got it. If you need to know what the record was or whatever, they're going to have it. JJ, I know you're a big basketball guy. I've even talked with Parker, who is over the website in that organization. They've even gotten into basketball and they're gathering more info. These guys are phenomenal.
Yeah, no doubt on the basketball side of things. I went down several rabbit holes, and it's accurate. I appreciate the fact that you can go back, football or basketball, and look at past coaches, past teams, state championships, regional championships. Yeah, I mean, you can go down, break it down by year, and so I could spend hours in there, and I dare say I have.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, a lot of the
You do
stuff.
when you
Go ahead.
sorry, when you get my age, it helps to be able to go back and look and remember exactly what happened in 1979, 76. Makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the stuff that we get to help us prepare for the ball game and our Monday night meetings where we watch film and record some stuff for pregame, a lot of that info that we use that makes us sound smart, actually, we did not come up with. We generously borrow it, shall we say, from the Football Historical Society. We send that off, and a lot of times even JB there, when he's making a graphic to post on our Facebook and Twitter pages or something, JB, you'll use those to make sure that you've got the most up-to-date info, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I don't want it to become to where someone has done more research than I have, and I've gotten it wrong. I want to make sure what I've done is right.
Yeah. So again, just wanted to make sure that we got that part in, because all of this info comes from them, because none of us, we have other jobs. None of us have time to sit there and do what those guys do. They take the time, and we actually have one of their contributors that works for me on another one of our stations. He does the Brewer football games as the sideline reporter. His name is Cody Walker. Does a phenomenal job. He's the guy that's in charge of getting all the helmet pictures and stuff up for each team's profile. And every time I go to a media day, whether it's Morgan County, Madison, or DeKalb or whatever, he'll text me and say, hey, if they have a new helmet, take a picture of it and send me the picture. So they do a great job in making sure that you got all the info, and especially us. With that, let's get into it. Fyffe is going to field team number 92 in football this season, which is almost crazy to think about, that we're 8 seasons out now, not including 2024, but 8 seasons out, I guess, of having 100 teams in the history of Fyffe football. God willing, he lets us stay here that long. We're going to get there. Coach Benefield, out of team number 92, will enter his 33rd season as a head coach, but his 28th season overall as the head coach at Fyffe. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, Fyffe will move to Class 3A. They will be in Region 8. Within that Region 8, there's going to be 3 first-ever meetings on the schedule, and Fyffe begins in Week 0 and has a bye week in Week 10, which is highly unusual for Coach and what he likes to do. But I think that when he had a bye week a few years ago, he kind of liked having that bit of rest, and especially after the few injuries that we've had, especially knee injuries the last couple of seasons with Logan and Caden and Mitchell, I think he would take it gladly. A 6-win season, by the way, would give the Fyffe program win number 600. I don't want to count my eggs before they hatch, Greg, but I think we can probably count on a 6-win season fairly handedly.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that schedule again with what Fyffe has coming back, you would think 6 wins would be a lot. And again, like I said, you don't want to count anything before it happens. Weird things happen, but I think 6 is a pretty safe bet.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. Week 0, we hop on the road. We got the Good Hope Raiders, a 4A opponent, Region 5. They're out of Coleman. Their 2023 record was 3-7, 2-4 in region play. But the interesting note out of this is it's going to be the first ever meeting with the Good Hope Raiders. I honestly am not as familiar with Good Hope as I know what some others are, and the fine folks like Rob Parker at the FHS Society are. But this was a situation, JB, where Fyffe just needed an opponent. because moving up to 3A, most of your normal opponents that you would play out of region are now in your region.
Yeah, and it's a situation where they've had trouble the last few years filling all the slots, even in 2A, filling missing a team here or there, and just trying to fill that schedule in. So to have opportunity to play someone brand new, try to get that their 4A, a little bit bigger of a school to give them a real good start to the season.
Yeah. Moving on to week 1, a opponent that has become quite familiar to the Fyffe fans over the last 2 years. In the last 2 seasons, they have played 4 times, meeting 2 times in each of the last season. You know who it is. It's the Pisgah Eagles. They stay 2A Region 7 up there in Old Pisgah, Alabama. Their 2023 record, and an astounding 12-2, 6-1 in region play. It'll be the 35th meeting overall, 2013-1 that favors Fyffe. It'll be the 5th meeting, like I said, in less than 2 calendar years when that meeting comes up. But JJ, the important factor here is this time it means absolutely nothing. It's just a non-region game.
Yeah, well, I mean, I credit to coach for scheduling a quality opponent, because I believe we all agree. You can look at the score and you can say, well, Pisgah's a quality opponent, and credit to Coach Pruitt staying in 2A, really wanting to play a high quality football team like Fyffe. And so I think it's a good game for Fyffe, even though we're playing a 2A school. But I think it's a great game for Pisgah as well, as they gear up in that 2A region and try to make a run in 2A next year. So I think it's great. I love Sand Mountain matchups when they're competitive, and I think we all agree that this game between Pisgah and Fyffe, even though the scores don't look that much like that, it's a pretty competitive game, and we all agree that Pisgah's quality, really physical football team.
A team in week 2 that moves up with Fyffe into 3A Region 8, the Collinsville Panthers and Coach Ernie Willingham. Of course, they're just up the road, an in-county regional opponent. It'll be the first region game of the year. Collinsville's 2023 record, 8-3, 5-2 in region play. It'll be the 65th meeting overall, and that standing is at 45, 18-1 in favor of Fyffe. As I got to looking over this, I cannot remember. I did not write it down. I should have, but there are not many opponents that have a winning record against Fyffe guys. I give that. And I got curious one day, so I sat down and looked at it. There are a few, and it's more than a handful, but there's not much more than a handful of teams that have a winning record over Fyffe. Then you go into week 3, the Asbury Rams. It's a region game as well. Asbury out of Albertville, 2023 record, 1-9, 1-5 in region play. It'll be the 7th meeting all time between these two. Of course, Fyffe is 6-0 in those previous meetings. We also stick with it's not going to be a nice little stretch there working towards the middle of the season. Week 4, the Brindley Mountain Lions, 3A Region 8 as well, out in Gunnersville. 0-10 last year, 0-6. It's their 5th meeting overall. Fyffe is 4-0. But I want to tell you, I know Coach Josh out there at Brindley Mountain. I got a chance to interview him several times. In fact, for those who may not listen to Coach's Breakfast on Fun Radio during football season, we're close enough to Brindley Mountain in ARAB that we have Coach Josh over with us on Coach's Breakfast, and he comes over every week, and he's very much a young coach. It's his first ever head coaching experience, and I like what he's doing, and I like the buy-in that he's trying to go for, because he's not just trying to get the kids to buy in. I think that's a big problem for a lot of coaches when they go into any situation. They worry about trying to get the kids to buy in, but they don't necessarily worry or pay much attention to getting A, the parents, and B, the community to buy in to what he's doing. And I feel like he's trying to get Brindley Mountain to buy in, to say, look, we can have a good little football program here in a difficult situation. They don't have a singular community. There are about 5 communities making up one school. So that makes things harder. But I think Brindley Mountain and Coach Josh could do something. Let's move to the next interesting matchup, which comes the very next week. And oh my goodness, I'm going to let you guys hit on this one a moment, because I know you've been waiting for it. In week 5, it's going to be the ever-anticipated matchup between the Fyffe Red Devils and the Coosa Christian Conquerors out of Gadsden, Alabama. It's a non-region game. It's as Coosa stays to a Region 6. They move up actually to 2A Region 6. Their last season's record, there's an asterisk beside it. 9-6, 3-3 in region play. As I mentioned, the first ever meeting. Guys, I'm going to let you have your way with this one. Whoever wants to break it down first. Fyffe and Coosa, people have been asking for this one for the last couple of years. Give me something.
Well, I think after some of the things that happened after they had to forfeit those games last year, there's probably a lot of people out there that want somebody to beat them down like they beat down a couple of schools, to try to prove their point. So, Coach, that's not really the way Coach operates, but, you never know what could happen. And maybe it's one of those times where Fyffe puts up 60 or 70 on somebody just to kind of prove a point.
Well, JJ, Coosa's talented though. I know what happened last year, but they are a talented football program.
Well, make no mistake about it. They're very talented. And if I'm not mistaken, that record, it had not been those forfeited games, they would have had 2 losses last year.
I think so.
And so I don't know how much. Yeah. And I don't know how many people they lost, how many kids they lost off last year's team. But I will say, that's a quality, at last year, quality 1A school that's moving up to 2A. I will say, you need to eat your Wheaties if you're going to play the Fyffe Red Devils. And, I'm with Greg. I know we don't want to get into too much of that, but when you reap what you sow a lot of times. So I'll just say that you reap what you sow. Now, of course, there's a Fyffe connection there at Coosa with Coach Teddy Whitmire, who's done a great job there. But I like this matchup. I like any matchup that puts the Fyffe Red Devils playing a team that they haven't played, that we're not familiar with. I really like this matchup mid-season.
I do too. Week 6, JB, you were not there for this one last year. This was the final regular season game on a Thursday night. It's the Sylvania Rams. And this one, we're going to stick with this one for a moment too, because there's some news out of Sylvania with this, but it's a 3A Region 8 game, 2023 record 10-3, 7-0 in region play. It's the 65th meeting all time, 41-21-2. Fyffe owns it like they do. I think everyone on this sheet. Yeah, they own every record in the sheet, but except for the first ever meetings, of course. But this Sylvania game, last year, JB, was an absolute frozen tundra. It felt like the only thing we were missing was snow and ice on the ground. By the time the game was over, we were like icicles. But the big news with this one is it's not Coach Benefield versus Coach Van anymore, as Coach Van has moved on to take the Scottsboro Wildcat job. Nevertheless, Sylvania, I think, was left in pretty darn good hands and in a pretty good position.
Yeah, it's always a tough matchup, and as you guys experienced all by your lonesome with the frozen tundra while I was down here in Florida, Sylvania's not going to sit. Sylvania's not going to just sit on the sidelines because they lost Coach Van. They're going to continue fighting. If anything, I've learned this season with watching Brady play basketball was that you don't have any quit. Just because you lose somebody, you still keep going. You still keep fighting. Program might change a little bit because every new head coach wants to add their own little niche to the team. But overall, you're going to get a lot of similar play. I kind of think of Fyffe that way. Whenever Coach Benefield decides to hang it up and enjoy retirement, the next coach in, everyone's going to expect that same sort of offense. Like they're not going to want to sway too much this way or that way. So I think with Sylvania, you'll still have a quality opponent. And by the 7th game of the season for Fyffe, they'll be hitting on all cylinders by then. We noticed last year with Geraldine, they kind of started off the ball slow, made some sloppy mistakes, they got themselves in trouble. By this time, this upcoming season, we'll be seeing a Fyffe team that's ready to make that strong playoff run.
Let's move on to week 7 in Fyffe football on the schedule. It's the Whitesburg Christian Warriors. They also move up to Class 3A Region 8. Now, this is a team out of Huntsville, but they play their games over at the old Madison School Stadium over in Gurley. Their 2023 record, 2-8, 1-6 in region play. It's going to be the 3rd meeting all time between Fyffe and Whitesburg. Of course, Fyffe owns that one as well. Let's go to week 8. the Holly Pond Broncos. And I should have put where it, if this is at Fyffe or at wherever. And I think this is a road game. Correct me if I'm wrong. I may be wrong on that, but we visit Holly Pond for the first time ever, or at least we visit with Holly Pond, 3A Region 8 opponent, 2023 record 2-8, 2-4. Holly Pond, an area, JJ, I'm going to stick with you because I'm going the basketball route. Holly Pond's had some pretty darn good basketball programs in the last several years, trying to get their football built back up.
Yeah, they've had some success there, and along with in that general vicinity, Susan Moore and everything. It's man, these reclassifications really, you win sometimes and you lose, and I don't know about Holly Pond, but I'm sure if they saw Fyffe on that schedule, and I think, aren't we in the same region? And you'll have to correct me. I mean, I'm sure they looked around. They go, "Oh, I don't know about that." But again, an opponent that, to my knowledge, Fyffe has not played at least in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I'm looking forward to seeing Fyffe play new opponents. So I'm looking forward to it.
An opponent in week 9 that is nowhere new to Fyffe. In fact, it has become one of the more entertaining rivalry matchups in the last 5 years or so. The Geraldine Bulldogs. And again, it's a week 9 game. And it is, by the way, the season finale for the Red Devils. Class 3A Region 8. This game now means something again, more than just pride and bragging rights. This could be, very well could be. I'm going to go ahead and shoot my shot now. This could be for the region crown late in the season. It's Geraldine, out of Geraldine. Everybody knows they're 15 minutes down the road from Fyffe, if that, as the crow flies. Their 2023 record, 12-2, 6-1. It's the 83rd meeting between the two, 45, 35, and 2. Fyffe owns it. It has gotten more interesting, though, in the last 5 years. These have become ball games, and we go from the very opening game of the season to the very last game of the season this year. And honestly, with Fyffe having a bye week in week 10, guys, roundtable this one, I guess I could not be more excited to end the season with what I expect to be a good ball game between a Fyffe team coached by Coach Paul Benefield and a Geraldine Bulldog team with the up-and-coming hotshot coach and Coach Michael Davis. And I mean that, by the way. When I say hotshot, I mean that with all due respect because he's earned it.
Yes. I'll jump in right here, and I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. I think Michael Davis is a fantastic coach. I mean, it shows on the field. These guys play. They caught Fyffe early last year, and I don't think Fyffe had everything together yet, but they proved out to be a really state title contending team. Now, I don't agree with. Hey, look. This private school argument, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think it's trash. I get tired of people talking about, well, they're private schools. They should be. I don't care about that. Fyffe beats private schools, has beat private schools. You play who's in front of you. And legitimately, Geraldine had a really legitimate chance to win that game. And so did Sylvania the week before. Right. And so they were competitive. So this is going to be a finale, in my opinion, like no other that could possibly be for the region crown. And I'm looking forward to it. Hey, and look, teams up the road from each other, and I called Plainview team up the road, and I called Geraldine the team up the road. And I'll never forget watching those players from Geraldine last year, wiping their feet on that Red Devil flag out in the middle of the football field after they beat Fyffe and then posing in front of the scoreboard. So that's just us fans. Fyffe's going to be all about business. That's going to be a heck of a ball game. I'm looking forward to it.
Anybody else want to jump in with this one?
Well, no, I believe, like you said, if that doesn't determine the region champ, I don't know what will, because I got a feeling, like I said, it's going to come down to winner take all. And you can't ask because, here lately, the last 5, 6, 7 years, the way these schedules are drawn up, that usually that 10th game is a non-region game. And again, it can matter when it comes to, some type of tiebreaker, but all in all, it doesn't really mean anything. And so, like you say, for this one to be a final region game between probably the top 2 teams in the region, It's going to be fun.
So you guys noticed there when we give you the rundown. Now, JB and JJ over here, the J's, how did they end up on the same side? You
It's because
guys,
it's Jay.
you guys did not graduate from either one of these two programs that I'm about to mention. The guy below me did, and your host right here did. You notice one team that's not on the side. That would be the Plainview Bears.
I'll say, let me add in there. My wife graduated from Plainview, and you see what sideline she sits on when the Plainview game would happen when we lived in Fyffe.
That's
Oh,
true.
boy.
I forgot about that. Very true. Let me just tell you what I was told. I'm gonna give you, I guess you might call it the official line. Okay, that's all I can give you. I can only give you the official line. When the schedules, or rather the regions, were first released, of course, we were smack dab in the middle of basketball season. And I had the opportunity that night to be at Fyffe, and I got to talk with some of the administration. And I asked them straight up, I said, who's going to be the non-region games, especially because Plainview now moves up to 4A.
Yeah.
And the one thing that Greg, for some reason, I didn't take this into account. When not only did Plainview move up into 4A, they moved up into a region that got put with 9 teams in the region, which means that's 8 region games out of a 10-game schedule. You're kind of messed over on getting to do some scheduling of your own. And I didn't take that into account.
I guess when you take that into account, but I mean, to play, a Plainview game. But then again, if you're getting the hell beat out of you every year, who does want to play? Might as well find some type of excuse, boys.
All right, so let me continue with the official line. All right, so with the so this is the word. I asked, what's going to become of this game? Is it going to happen? Because I did remember several years ago, I think it was under Coach Goodwin. I may be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it was under Coach Goodwin.
I think so.
That game got moved from the end of the regular season to the midway point of the season because there was some concern, shall we call it, about losing the game at the end of the year, going right smack into the playoffs the next week and having as it was said to me, a loser's mentality. They didn't like feeling like losers going into the first round of the playoffs. And I'm not telling you anything that's groundbreaking news to anybody. Fyffe has beaten Plainview every year for how many years now? Plainview hasn't won a football game against Fyffe since 2008. In fact, my senior year.
I do think maybe taking a break for a few years, because I feel like, and Greg knows this because he was right in the heat of it. There was some heat right there between the two. And I think over the years, and Adam, you just said it, there hadn't been a Plainview win in 15 years?
Yeah. 08
I think people,
last win.
I think teams that play Fyffe, and again, I'm not connected with the program. We just call what we see on the radio. I know what I see, but I think teams already mark things as a loss when they play Fyffe before they play. And I think that mentally, whether they would ever accept that or say that or not, those young kids, and I know this for a fact because my son did the same thing. You talk about playing teams during the week, and they're like, how bad do you think we're going to get beat? And they're like, we're going to get killed. Well, if you go into a ball game with that mentality, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You are going to get killed. So I think a break, for a few years, and when they come back, maybe that renews that rivalry and that kind of that passion that people in Rainsville and people in Fyffe have for this game. Because I think it's lost some of that. I think it's lost having a bonfire and all those things that accompany to that. I think it'll help this game going down the road if they play whenever they play.
We talked about that last year, whether it meant the same thing. And you're absolutely right. I don't think it does mean the same thing. Again, back as old timers, Fyffe would win too. And I was unlucky enough. I never got to beat Plainview. Right. I beat Fyffe when I was at Plainview, but in that rivalry, when it really mattered, I never was on the winning side. So I'm living vicariously through this. It's not much of a rivalry anymore. It's kind of like a rivalry, like a hammer and a nail is. Fyffe's the hammer, Plainview's the nail. That ain't much of a rivalry. The hammer's going to win every time. So maybe a break will do some good because it's, it has lost its luster, no doubt.
Well, it's not the
And-
first
and
time
I'm-
they've taken a break, though. Remember, in
Right.
the early 2000s, I think it was from 02 to 05, they didn't play each other, at least in the regular season. I vaguely remember, and I was in like middle school. I was late elementary, early middle school at that point, and I vaguely remember, I think they played like in a jamboree once or twice against each other just to kind of give the fans a little something at the start of the season, but it was only like a half against one another. Then they'd play another team or something to that effect.
Right.
Like they'd go in like an all county type of thing. They'd invite Crossville or Geraldine or somebody else, whoever. But they didn't play for 4 years. And then, in 05, 6, and 7, Fyffe won, or 06, 07, Fyffe won those games. Plainview won it in 08. And then all of a sudden the streak begins in the 09 matchup. And since then it's become what it has become. I think personally, although it has not reached these heights, I will say this. The Geraldine matchup has become the rivalry right now.
Yes.
In this area.
Yes.
Although it has not reached the heights of what Plainview Fyffe used to be and could still get back to. And I want to give credit here where credit is due. Jeremy Pruitt being at Plainview, I think is going to be one big helpful kick in the pants, if you will, to the Plainview Bears. His college experience, I know everything he's gone through. I'm not going to hit on that tonight. We all know all the headlines that was made about him and everything. Look, I don't care. The man can coach football. And as I watched him interact with those boys in that last meeting last year, I knew something was going to change. If they're able to keep Coach Pruitt at Plainview for a number of years, I think Plainview will get back to some semblance of what we remember Plainview to be. And that rivalry could get restored. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it'll ever reach the heights that it used to be, but it could be restored to the point where it could become competitive again. But I think the Fyffe-Geraldine rivalry matchup, and JB, you tell me whether you agree with me or not. I think the Fyffe-Geraldine rivalry matchup is the premier rivalry right now in DeKalb County.
That is for DeKalb County, and it is for the North. It's one of those matchups that people want to follow. That if you ever look at our Facebook feed during the live broadcast, you see those numbers jump up so high during a matchup where there's a chance Fyffe could get beat. Because Fyffe is the powerhouse right now, and that's what other teams want to see. Other fans want to see. They want to see Fyffe get beat. They don't want to see Fyffe win. They want to see him get beat more than anybody. Yeah. So these kind of matchups bring in not just a bigger fan base of people listening to our show so they can catch a glimpse of the game, or in FHS where they watch the game on TV. It brings in revenue. Everybody wants this kind of matchup because they want to see that kind of play. They want to see a score that isn't 63-0. They want to see a score that's 35-28.
Yeah.
Or a missed field goal is what determines the game. That's what Geraldine brings to the table for Fyffe right now.
Let's move forward now into what is Greg and JJ's favorite segment, the 10 minutes of crap. 10 minutes of crap. And this week, this one comes at us from our very own Greg Mears. Greg, I kind of asked around and I said, hey, what's our 10 minutes of crap going to be this week? And immediately Greg fired back, well, what about NIL and the transfer portal? And, I thought that's going to be a great topic to discuss because there are states around the great state of Alabama that are getting ready to implore or already have implored and put in place the NIL system for even high school. And so that leads us down the rabbit hole of, is it coming to Alabama and what will the effect be, but also the transfer portal and the effect that it's had on high school athletes trying to get to the next level, whether it's D1, D2, D3, it doesn't matter. There has been an impact, Greg, and for you to have this on your mind, I want to start with you since this one was your baby, your genius idea for 10 minutes of crap this week. What's your thoughts with NIL specifically, and we'll go transfer portal in a moment.
NIL, is something, and again, I don't know, I know some states have passed it. I don't know. I know Alabama's had a bill up. I don't know what it's going to be. If it's true NIL, where these kids can make some money, at the school they're at, then that's fine. Let them make some money. But if it's like it is in college now, where they are hey, come here, I can give you, I don't know what a high school player would make, but I can give you $1,000 if you come over here and play, or I can give you $1,000 if you come over here and play. It's BS. I mean, come on, guys. This is amateur. This is true amateur. This is where the kids are really supposed to still play because they love it, because they want to play for their community, not to play for money. And I just think, it's bad enough in college. And again, I agree, these guys deserve to make money. Don't get me wrong. It's a business now. It's a big business. But I just never thought, and I don't think the NCAA thought that it was going to be something where you could spend $13 million to get people that you want, to do this, get this person to come there. Excuse me. I just don't think that's what it was intended to do. And then you start talking about the transfer portal where now you start holding teams hostage. Man, it's got to where, and I love Alabama football. I grew up on it. I went to college there, but it gets me going, man, this is, it's worse than pro. There's no structure. Every year you can go to a different school. And I don't even know who the players are at the time anymore. So, again, I think they deserve to make money, but I just think they've got to reel it in somewhere, somehow. And God knows what it's going to do to high school. Like I said, I guess hopefully they'll set some more ground rules before they actually do it, because NCAA let the genie out of the bottle without knowing what they were doing.
To your point, Greg, with what all has happened, there's no structure with it. There are virtually no rules whatsoever, which to me points to the Tennessee and Virginia situation. How can the NCAA come down on Tennessee and Virginia for NIL violations when they can't even govern it in the first place? They have no ruling power over it. I don't understand that. But at the same time, while there's a loophole, if you're going to say the school can pay the kid rather than the business pay the kid, if the school can give the kid $10,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, heck, before the season even started a couple of years ago when Bryce Young was at Alabama, before he'd even taken the snap as a starter, we were already getting reports that he was making $1 million in NIL money, and he hadn't even played a full game. So if you're going to present them the opportunity, I'm for that. If you're not going to govern it, then you're going to have the wild, wild west. I'm not exactly for that at all. I want something governed because, like you said, Greg, this is going to become the haves versus the have-nots very, very quickly. We're already seeing it. I know a lot of teams out in Texas haven't been making splashes lately, but they're fixing to. The Texas Longhorns are coming up fast. Texas A&M's got money, and they were not ashamed to brag about it, even under Jimbo Fisher, a friend of ours calling him Dirt Neck on the radio. I don't get the whole Tennessee situation, how the NCAA is coming down on them. And maybe there's something I'm missing with that. Honestly, don't care. If you're not going to have any guidelines on it, then how can you punish them?
You know what the actual charge is, right?
Enlighten me.
The boosters plane to fly a recruit in. I mean, come on. I can give him $1 million, but I can't put him on a private plane. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. And then when you couple the transfer portal in, now that NIL is – see, you didn't have these issues, I don't think, JJ, with the transfer portal until NIL came along. Then a kid can sit there and tell a coach, you got a week. You've got a week to get me more NIL money or to at least promise me a better roster spot. But let's be honest, it's all about the money. You've got a week to give me the money before I jump in the portal. And that's affecting our high school kids, by the way.
All right. So Adam, you're all right. So Adam, you're about to become a dad.
Yeah.
All right. So what's one of the most important things you do as a parent? You raise your children to be responsible adults.
Yeah.
How can you do that when you're not governing the amount of money they're taking in, and at the same time you're not teaching them how to manage the money they're getting? You see all these college recruits and players getting these $250,000 automobiles. All right. This is where we're getting out of control. We're not teaching the next generation how to manage their money. You got college players who can make more money playing in their junior and senior year in college than they can to move on to the pros.
Yes.
Which ultimately hurts the next man up, right? Caleb Williams, prime example. He should have been drafted last year. He's going to be drafted this year, but if he'd been drafted last year, next man up for that team, right? So players are now missing the opportunities. High school players are sitting on the bench longer because of this. You got the transfer portal who is now hurting these recruits, these top 500 recruits that want to be done, that go visit these college recruits. Suddenly you got, your number one quarterback going to, let's just say they're going to Alabama. Suddenly Alabama says, hey, I want this quarterback over here. He's got 2 years experience. I want him to come in. right? So then that recruit's like, okay, where am I left? What are we teaching the next generation? We're not teaching them how to manage money. We're not teaching them how to
Yes.
what they need to survive. We're just giving them ample amount of dollars. And what about the players that aren't making money? What about that kid on the scout team defense who isn't making a dime and he's got that part-time job at Huddle House because he can't make ends meet. He can't pay for his college, but he's trying his hardest to make the team. And suddenly that star running back comes out of nowhere and he has a clear shot.
Yeah.
Is that going to weigh in his mind whether he's off the team or not? After that shot, he's already done the damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amen to that, JB. So I will say, and I'm going to echo Greg here. I will say this: the NCAA is inept, and they have no reason for existence. Had they been where they needed to be, they would have seen that could at least forecast some of this and put some. I think the big thing. I'm not opposed to kids making money. No, you ask me if my son was going to basketball scholarship and he was going to make X number, I would say yes. There has to be some type of structure so that kid that JB just referenced, that kid can also benefit from, and it's going to take some work. It's going to take tiers because you got different schools with different amounts of revenue. But had the NCAA been what they needed to be, they would have already forecast this and said, okay, here's what we have. In the pros, they have salary caps. They have a salary cap. Each team has an operating budget, and they have to stay within that. And that's what should have happened before they let the genie out of the bottle, as Greg said. Now, let me back up to high school. We could be old school and say, dadgummit, I didn't play for money, and so they shouldn't either. The reality is that's where it's going. Now, I'm going to say this out loud. The AHSAA already has a model to look at in the NCAA to see what happens when you don't put any kind of restraints or any kind of structure in place for this. And they are foolish if they don't go ahead and as a contingent on that being adopted in Alabama, set guidelines for that. Look, these kids that play high school sports, they are more demanded. There's more demands on them than Greg will tell you. When did you start getting practicing for football, Greg?
Oh, us? We didn't start till July. Right at the end of August, we had our first organized, which they weren't supposed to be, running sessions. It wasn't year round.
Did you what?
Now
it's year round. My kid played basketball. Guess what? It was year round.
Yeah.
He couldn't hardly work a part-time job because of practice schedule. He couldn't work a part-time job to get that experience. So I understand if you're going to demand that much out of kids that they give their summer up, they give all that. So I get that. But AHSAA better be doing their homework, and they better put some guidelines in place. It may never happen, but if it does, they have guidelines and they have some structure in place. Otherwise, it's going to be the Wild West in high school sports in Alabama.
Adam, I got one more thing to say, and then I'll be quiet about it. But if you want to know how bad it's screwed up, you've got Power 5 head coaches leaving that job to go to the pro, or you've got a head coach of UCLA stepping down to go be an offensive coordinator somewhere. And you can say anything you want right now. If there's not a transfer portal or this NIL, I think Nick Saban's still roaming the sidelines at Bama. I really do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's going to drive out so many coaches if they don't get it under control.
JB, did you have a disagreement there? You were shaking your head for a moment.
I don't have a disagreement at all. I just have 4 words for you.
Okay.
Good old boy club.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
It's still present. It's still right there. I don't get me started on some of that stuff. I get irritated.
All right, I won't. We won't get you started. I think.
Come on, give me one chance.
That's going to be the perfect opportunity to transition to our next new segment, which actually comes from your mind, JJ, called "So, What's on Your Mind?" JJ, because this is your baby, I'll start with you. So,
Okay,
fine.
so couldn't wait for this. Why? Because I've got something on my mind, and that's whining basketball coaches. I mean, repeat that. Whining basketball coaches. I get so irritated watching, I don't care if it's high school, because we had some in our area. I won't name. One is retired, one is still in the county at a city school, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Who spend most of their time during a game instead of coaching their players and making adjustments. I will say that one person I'm referenced is one of the best at making adjustments, so he does that too. But whining basketball coaches that whine about the officiating more than they do about the bad play by their players. And so, case in point, and I got into an argument with, not really an argument. He's a close friend of mine. He's an Auburn fan. And you know what? I made a comment on Facebook about Bruce Pearl because every freaking time I watch Bruce Pearl coach a basketball game, he is losing his mind about the officiating when most of the time he gets that benefit. The case in point, the other night they're playing Kentucky. They're getting beat by double figures, and there's a call that wasn't called on the floor, but they stopped play to review because they thought it might be a flagrant because a Kentucky player accidentally hit an Auburn player in the course of a play. They showed the
30
replay.
seconds.
And Bruce Pearl is losing his mind, and he gets all the calls. My friend, he commented, listen, coaches need to lobby for getting calls. I get it. But he is the biggest baby, and he makes me angry to watch him coach because he kicks and screams. He might as well fall on the floor and kick like a child. And that's how I feel about Bruce Pearl.
Time's up. Hey, I will say this to your point. I'm not going to harp on any one specific, but I will say this to your point about Bruce Pearl. His players take after him in that, specifically one KD Johnson.
Exactly.
And I will agree. I can't stand it. I would rather the coach – listen, I get if you have a legit, gripe with an official. I understand it, but not every play. You should be coaching your team and your players, in my opinion. And I often told Crimson this on the basketball court. JB, I'm sure you told Brady this a handful of times yourself, if not more. You have no business talking to the ref unless the ref talks to you. Then if the ref then talk with him. But outside of that, you keep your mouth shut. You go to the bench and you talk to your coach. And if you've got a gripe and you need to say something, you say something to your coach and you let your coach handle it. Outside of that, you play the game. And the coach ought to be coaching up the players and doing what he has to do. And I get it. As you did say, some coaches use it to work the officials and try to get an advantage in their favor. I get it. It's part of the game plan. Don't like it in some areas. But Bruce Pearl, I'm a Bama fan, guys. All you Red Devil fans that are not in agreement with me on Alabama, I'm not apologizing. Bruce Pearl is one of the worst. Greg?
Listen,
Yes.
So here's
Yes.
on this too. All right. So my daughters both graduated from Auburn. Stabbed me in the back. Don't know what I did wrong. Thought they loved me.
You're a terrible father, Greg.
Obviously, I did something wrong somewhere. But if you have ever listened to the Auburn Sports Network, you'll know they come by this naturally. Because ever
Here we go.
a penalty in football or a foul in basketball since I've ever listened to them. That's going all the way back. Jim Fyffe and all of them. And Jim, great enough. Gramblet loved him too. But my God, there's a limit to how much of a homer you can be, and they push that limit. So it must be something they teach in class. I'm not sure, but it's got to be hey, we never make a foul class 102 or something like that. I swear to God.
All right.
It's hard.
Greg, we're going to move on to your 2 minutes of So What's on Your Mind. But before I start your clock, explain the Lakeland, what does that say? Lakeland Dreadnoughts?
Lakeland Dreadnoughts.
Explain it real quick.
Everybody know what a dreadnought is.
Go for it.
One battleship. The USS Texas is the only one left surviving. All right, so that's it. This is a high school in Lakeland, Florida. Actually, my dad graduated from this high school. Fantastic team. The Pounce brothers, if everybody remembers them in the NFL, that's where they came from. Quite a few people in there. They have been to 10 state championships, 86, and won 9 of them. Just a fantastic program. And, I just like the weird nickname. So I plan on wearing one every week so we can talk about it.
I was going to say, you travel. JB, how far is Lakeland from you? Do you have an idea?
Probably 2-3 hours.
Yeah, so it's a good 3 hours. It's
Nice.
right in the center. Worst place in Florida you could live is Polk County in Lakeland.
All right, Greg.
Well, that's a plug for vacationing in Lakeland.
Yeah.
All right, Greg, you're on the clock. Your 2 minutes of what's on your mind begins now.
Well, listen, so I wanted to make things a little more fun. And if I can do this real quick, because I want everybody else to kind of think of what their biggest thing was. And so my thing was, what was one of the funniest things that you remember that happened to, your school, your high school? And so I'm going to start, since we used this word last week, with the legend of the elephant turd at Fyffe High School in the spring of 1980. And if anybody went to school there from K through 12, I'm talking teachers, guidance counselors, they can tell you the legend of this gigantic turd that somebody left in the toilet. That was, guys, this potato does not do it justice. All right. It was probably about twice this size and probably half the size in girth. And we thought somebody brought a horse in or something. But I swear to you, it was like a freaking amusement park going in and out of that men's room. For girls, I'm telling you, guidance counselor, principal, everybody going in there to take a gander at the elephant turd. And there's not enough. You can take all the people from up the road and smash them together, and they still would not know who this turd was. It's like too much poo. Okay, that's what they should have been saying. Instead of too much blue, it was too much poo.
I'm glad you brought a visual representation.
Got funny in their school as well.
I agree with JB. Thanks for the visual.
You still
Looked
have
like we
30
needed
seconds.
Hey, if I had a sweet potato, it would have been much more accurate.
it.
I got to buy one. Sorry.
We didn't want them 50 taters. We didn't want those 50 taters loaded baked potatoes.
Yeah,
Goes over. We end with that.
A 1 pound potato would might do it justice. I mean, the janitor had to come in there and break it up so it would go down the toilet.
That's time.
Please leave that in there, Adam.
So if that happened today, there would have been pictures. I'm just saying. Pictures
Yes.
everywhere.
The thing is that we didn't.
They would have
Yes.
claimed that.
Oh my God, it would have been all over. Instagram.
Yes.
Yep.
And then of course
They would have put.
You're a boy, so we're trying to figure out who did it. We're like,
Yeah.
maybe it was Moose. He's really big.
You wouldn't have had to, like JB said. They would have posted it as a source of pride. Source of pride.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to put
Look,
a
hey,
content
hey.
warning on this episode, aren't we?
Hey, look at this log. Look at this log I just put in the pool.
Hey, think about how painful it
Man,
was.
come after me.
I don't even want to think about that.
I'm gonna move this thing along to the top right corner of the screen right here. JB, your 2 minutes of what's on your mind begins now. Go for it.
So it was funny. My original 2 minutes was going to be about halftime at the Super Bowl and how much I'm displeased with all of that. I wish we could go back to 15 minutes, but the basketball theme and Brady just ending his season and Addison as well, ending their seasons just not too long ago. The thing I noticed with these kids and these refs, okay, number one, we don't have enough refs. We don't have enough qualified people who are on the court that know what's going on. So we get what we get, and they make bad calls and they miss calls. And watching Fyffe play basketball this season, seeing a couple slam dunks that were called technical fouls, nothing more troubling than that, because you could see live on the TV what was going on. So one thing coaches have to remember that are in, well, let's start with parents. Parents have a responsibility to build their kids up. You have to have kids on the floor who are prepared to take the discipline and the disappointment that may come with playing any team sport. If you don't have someone who can handle that, then you're going to have frustration. Brady, for the longest time, he destroyed one basketball goal because when he would miss something or not do something right, he would get upset and he would take that anger out. Well, he's learned how to take that anger out more on the court and less on the goal. So we, as parents, we've got to teach them. But even beyond that, coaches have got to do a better plan of discipline and a better plan of building them up. These teenagers. These teenagers are not the teenagers from when I was a teenager. Okay, teenagers are so much more worried about their size, what they look like, how other people view them. It is such a bigger problem now than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, probably even 10 years ago. But right now, everyone's so focused on winning that kids aren't being taught.
Yeah.
That kids aren't learning the lessons they need to learn. Kids are, what is it? Less than 2% of all athletes in our high school make it to any pro level of whatever sport they're playing. Less than 2%. More likely, your kid's not going to be the next NBA star. They're not going to be the next NFL star. They're going to be They're going to be the one player who has to have some type of real job in the world.
Yeah.
And we've got to be better at parents and coaches of teaching them that.
I didn't
Agree.
give you a 30-second mark because I didn't want to interrupt you. I felt like you were on a very righteous path, if you will. I will say one thing I thought about, two quick things, and I'll let you guys kind of jump on that before we hit the final point of the night. First of all, we took a very hard left turn a moment ago to take a very hard right turn with JB's what's on his mind. But I will say this. I agree with everything you say. I want to add to it, though, in that we've got to get – I'm going to choose my words carefully because it exists in every sport. Girls and boys, doesn't matter. Football, basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball, it doesn't matter. Although volleyball seems kind of straightforward to call. But all these sports, period, we've got to get a lot more what's the word I'm looking for? Concise, and we've got to get better across the board in being, if this is going to be the call, then it's got to be the call not only here, but in the next game down the road, when others are playing the same game down the street in the other counties. It's got to be consistent. That's the word I'm looking for. It's got to be consistent. And I know it's hard, especially when you've got, I don't know how many area associations of referees throughout the state. I honestly don't know how many we have. I know there's a ton. And you're right, Greg, or JB rather, we have a massive problem with getting folks to come out and to be referees, umpires, and the like. We have a problem. And we're losing some of the best ones, whether it's retirement, old age, whatever the case may be. That's why a lot of times you'll hear of games being moved to Thursday night during football season because there's not enough to cover all of them on Friday. And so some refs will double up and call a Thursday night game, turn around and go travel 50 miles, go call a Friday night game. That's why high school basketball, some games, you're going to get the same refs for 4 straight games through the 2 JV games and the 2 varsity. It's not always the case, but even in those situations, though, we have no consistency. And I think to your point of like the slam dunk conversation that was brought up, Fyffe and Geraldine, for instance, use 2 different association of refs. Fyffe and Sylvania, I think, don't quote me on this, I think they use 2 different associations of refs as well. And everybody gets to choose. That's not my issue. You use whatever association you want. I'm just looking for more consistency in the calls. And if it's going to
want uniformity,
exactly.
Well, let me just say something right there as far as specifically about Cooper Cox and his dunks. I saw the video as well. I didn't see anything wrong with them. I will say this, and not defending the officials, because I agree. I think there needs to be a level of consistency there. Now, I will say officials in our area don't see a lot of dunks. And so
True.
Bang, bang play, maybe they're not looking at maybe they're not seeing it. They're not used to seeing it, so they don't know. They don't know that, he's allowed to hang on a little bit longer if he feels like he's going to fall on somebody or anything.
I want to say this. I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a moment because I said my piece on it, but I also want to go the other direction. The officials we have, they do. I want to give credit where credit is due. I believe most of our officials do it as best a job as they can possibly do. I wholeheartedly believe that. And like to your point, JJ, officials around here, they don't see a whole lot of dunks. They really don't, especially with the way that basketball is going nowadays. and I know we really were trying to highlight all the sports with it, but in particular with basketball, it's a 3-point shootout all the time in every game now. But with that said, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball, and I attend a lot of these sports mainly because I've got family in them, or we call them, or I just enjoy going to them. I think the officials in our areas do a wonderful job. I can wholeheartedly agree with a lot of what our officials do. There are some that I have bones to pick with and don't much care when I see them coming out of the locker room or getting ready to call it. I'm like, oh crap, we got an official. Oh boy. But for the most part, and I want to say this too, and we're going to move on to our final segment of the night or of the show. I wouldn't want to be an official. I applaud those men and women for doing what they do. I'm being devil's advocate here. I've got friends who are officials, and they've got more guts, they've got more backbone, they've got more what than I got to be an official, because honestly, I've got a temper, and I couldn't take someone yelling at me from the stands. I couldn't take a coach getting up in my grill. And let me say this, my little brother is getting into officiating, and he's told me several times I've done this JV game and I had to throw a coach out because he started cussing at me. He started getting on me because of my age, because I'm too young and da. I'm like, well, you are a little green behind the ears, but you're the official. You do what you got to do. Listen, I would not want to be an official. I would rather be the guy that's right here behind this microphone right here. Okay. I would rather be this guy. And
I have one thing to add.
And then just let the officials do what they do, their job, and we do our job.
Listen, I got one thing to add to that too. Being at the Fyffe Gaston game, those officials did nothing that cost Fyffe that game. Fyffe cost Fyffe that game.
That's right.
Some calls, but they called that game pretty accurate both ways. I mean, they let them play, but they let them play on both ends.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think they did what a good official would do, and so again, we're not bashing officials here. I think it's the response to officiating. I get tired of hearing people talk about the refs, what they're killing us. No, the play of the team on the floor is what kills you.
Before we get out of here and let you go, we want to make you aware of some things coming at Fyffe. So JB's going to help me with this. I'll get it rolling. JB, you take over afterwards. But upcoming at Fyffe, we're recording this on Monday the 19th. That also happens to be the same night that baseball gets underway for the town of Fyffe, as they have first pitched with North Jackson on the 19th. Their next games up are on the road to Cedar Bluff, which is today, the day the podcast drops. On Thursday, that's the varsity pitching at 5 o'clock, JV following at 7. Those times are always tentative, by the way, especially that second game. Then Saturday, the varsity will play a doubleheader at Plainview at 11 and 1 o'clock. That's varsity only, as we understand it. That will also be followed by a 3-game homestand beginning Monday with North Jackson at 4:30 for the varsity and 6:30 for the JV. Softball's first pitch, still yet to come, although they're inching closer to it, is Thursday, the 29th versus Sylvania. So if you're looking to be getting out, we had some nice weather on Monday this week, and so we're getting into that season now where if you're looking for some things to do, be out in the weather and enjoy some high school athletics, baseball and softball season getting ramped up in earnest. JB?
All right, so pre-K registration is going on now through March 20th. You can go online to prek.alaceed.alabama.gov to register. If you need assistance, it will be available at Fyffe on February 26th. Enrollment is open to all Alabama children 4 years of age on or before September 1st, 2024. Kindergarten registration is also available right now at decab12.org. Once you've completed the online registration, bring the following documents to school on February 26th to complete the registration. You'll need a birth certificate, parent photo ID, social security card, Alabama shot record, judge signed custody paperwork if necessary, and address verification such as a water or power bill. If neither is in the parent or guardian's name, a notarized residency affidavit can be used with a water or power bill in the signer's name.
And that's just some of the things that's coming up at Fyffe. And of course, prom season around the corner, not long with that. And all those kids are getting prepared for that. So I'm sure in a week or two, we're going to have a talk about prom season, and that'll be fun as always. But I think we've had one heck of an episode here with this one already. I want to say, guys, it's been great to have you. Greg was with us last week. Good to see you again, my friend. JJ, JB, your first episodes. what do you guys expect? Just real quick before we sign off here, what do you guys expect for this podcast? Because I do have one more bit of exciting news that I'll break after you tell me what you expect.
JJ, you can go ahead.
Well, I mean, look, I do a wrestling podcast on another network.
Plug it.
So yeah. So we just started this kind of off the cuff with Howie Cheney, who folks in Fyffe may know Howie Cheney. He was a clock operator for Fyffe basketball for quite a few years. He's from Sylvania. And Randall Cunningham. And Randall runs River City Media. And Randall actually worked for WCW back in the day. I had a short stint working security and aspiring professional wrestler. And so Howie and I, because we got to know each other at the scorers table at Fyffe basketball games, so yeah, he invited me. So we've started doing a podcast. It's called "It's Still Real to Me." Damn it, you'll have to forgive me for that, but it's still real to me. Damn it. And if you wonder, there's a reason for that title. But we talk about a wide range of stuff, and it's available. We do Facebook Live, and then it's available on Apple Podcasts and via YouTube. So we do that. But for me, you know, I love the wide variety of topics. I like for us to kind of throw the net out and talk about a wide variety of things here on this podcast. I've had a lot of fun. I have no shortage for words. You'll have to kind of, you know, put the reins on me probably. Maybe I need to lay off these while we're doing this. But anyway, I've had a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for podcast listeners. I've been an avid podcast listener for probably 8 years of all sorts, and it's become the media that I listen to the most. I don't listen to music or radio, so hopefully people that listen to podcasts will tune in and listen to us country boys talk about Fyffe football and other random stuff.
I got to get. I know he was more into the Memphis wrestling scene, but I got to get Michael St. John on your podcast.
Yes, do that. Yes. So let me go ahead. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Adam's boss, Michael St. John, cut the first Hulk Hogan video introduction. Look it up on YouTube. Michael St. John, Hulk Hogan. I think it's a work of art back in the day. And so it's kind of interesting tie-in there for us.
I'm going to get him on your podcast for you, but you got to promise me you'll ask him one question specifically about that promo cut. Okay?
Can Adam get a raise?
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's the first question you got to ask. Second question.
That's the first question.
Second,
you got a baby on the way, Adam.
Well, it has to do with money. Ask him how much he got paid for that. By the way, just ask him how much he got paid for that. JB, what do you expect for this podcast to do? What do you expect from it?
Well, amazingly enough, being in Florida, we're very active on the basketball scene here, more so than football. So the kids have a direct connection to Fyffe. Brandy does as well. We still have a lot of friends and family who live in Fyffe and just in DeKalb County alone. So keeping that kind of alive week after week until we get to football season and even beyond is something that will help keep people kind of calm down a little bit. Because after you get out of football season for a little while, people start to get a little antsy, really ready for that. I mean, you talk about the spring game, people are really amped up for that, even though it's just a spring game. So, man, like JJ said, the broad array of topics. We got March Madness coming up. Of course, we still have the NBA going on. We got the Summer Olympics this summer. There's going to be a lot of sports-related information we can share even beyond high school.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're looking forward to it. And, Greg, I'll say this. If you ever go to another game and you don't invite me, I'm just saying.
Tickets are limited. Like I got one to Florida Wednesday, so I'm relying on somebody to get me free nice tickets like that. But hey, if I get two, I'll let you know. You're up next.
All right. The other exciting news before we get off of here, outside of we have a sponsor. I want to say that one more time. We have a sponsor, and I cannot wait to unveil that. We will do that next week. In fact, we talked today via email. We will unveil our official new sponsor for the month of March a week early. coming up next week. The other bit of exciting news, we were working on this literally up until the last moment before we hit record on this thing. Folks, the Red Devil Radio Show has not only expanded to YouTube. In case you missed that, we are on YouTube now. You can watch us on YouTube. We will probably have our football game broadcast there as well on Friday nights with the scoreboard up, and you can keep up with everything there as well. We are also now on Spotify. The Red Devil Radio Show, Fyffe Focus, the podcast, is now on Spotify. Now, it's audio only, but that's helpful for you listeners that maybe are traveling down the road and you don't need to watch it because you need to keep your eyes on the road, but you can at least hear all the fun and frivolity that goes on of Fyffe Focus, the podcast. Episode 1, did I use that right? Episode 1 is currently up on all the platforms now between Facebook, YouTube. The links are on Twitter because we're not paying that weird, stupid price to be whatever on X, but we are now on Spotify. And so you've got 3 ways to get the podcast, and it's free. We're not asking you for money. We're not asking you to be what do they use? Patreon. We're not asking you to do anything like that. We just want you to have wholesome, fun content that you can love, enjoy, laugh to, maybe reminisce on, maybe get you geared up for whether it be football or basketball or something else happening in the world that we bring up. Maybe get you geared up and fired up for that. Maybe breaking Wahoo's leg. I don't know.
Yes. Hey, so I just want to say, Adam, Greg and I love being frivolous. So yes, let's do it. Yeah. We love frivolity. So
all right.
We're all in.
Hey, look, give me 2 claps of the Ric Flair.
Woo! I'm gonna get kicked out of this hotel probably, but
I got a story to tell you. I'll save it for another time.
Oh,
guys, it's been fun. I look forward to next week. Hopefully we can get everybody on in the next episode or 2. You notice one's missing. Drew's not with us on this week. He had school obligations he had to take care of. Plus his little one has been sick, so we had to let him do what he needed to do there. But hopefully we can get everybody back on together. I know it can't always be this way every week, but I really have enjoyed this, guys. I look forward to each and every week getting with you. And I know our folks are going to listen and enjoy it. So thank you, guys. Thank you, JB from Jacksonville, Florida. Hope to see you soon, my friend.
Yep.
JJ, where you said you're in Augusta?
I am in Augusta, Georgia. Absolutely. I'm working this week.
You're a dang world traveler is what you are.
Well, I mean, I got private pass to Augusta National, but I didn't want to say that out loud. But
okay, yeah.
No, they don't let you in there.
And Greg from Lakeland. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're not from Lakeland. You're from good old Fyffe, Alabama.
Actually, I was born in Lakeland, baby.
Oh, well, there you go. There's the connection. Well, that's
what's wrong with you.
Thank you, guys. As he steps off over there. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a great night. We thank you, folks, for listening to Fyffe Focus, the podcast, episode 2. Share us with your friends. Share us on social media. Let everybody know where they can get us. And you guys have a great evening, great morning, afternoon, whatever time you're listening. And for all the guys, as always, go Big Red.